We are recording. Hello, my name is Courtland. Today I'll be going through the shots that I work on for making of beautiful. So my position would be just to composite in the shots for beautiful. There's multiple shots that I've worked on. It would be nice just to go through the work that I've done and see what shots I've worked on, what effects I added, what are the thoughts behind the shots. So this is the work I'll be sharing. So there's multiple shots I've worked on. Usually the one thing I just need to keep in mind is what are the shots that I'm signed to work on. So there's multiple shot numbers for each shot in SE. Shot 1 up to shot 41 or 42, I would say, which is quite a lot. So I don't think it will be possible for one person to still work on each of these shots because it's just, I think the workload would just be too much and probably I might get a burnout. But yeah. But these shots are being separated or assigned to different each individual interns that will be working on for beautiful. So yeah, so this is mostly just a column that I worked on. Well, the column that I just need to follow along. So we have my name, sorry. We have my name over here. So I worked on shot 38, shot 39, shot 41. These rest of the other shots that I also worked on. Basically I'm highlighted as red, which is would be me. And there will also be other interns that we working on, such as Rita, Tandu, Danny. But there's multiple interns that work on individual shots for beautiful in compositing. So we all mainly worked on artifacts. I don't I don't think DaVinci would be a best fit for this project. There was a lot of issues that had happened because we were trying, I think one of the interns were trying to experiment with this, with the PSD file, handle the animation sequence inside of DaVinci. Unfortunately, not really. I wouldn't say exactly. It worked quite because there was like multiple issues, a lot of errors. I mean, I wouldn't say there's a lot of errors, but there was multiple issues that had happened. And the DaVinci wouldn't be a best fit for the project, so the other alternatives is we would composite in After Effects. Yeah. So this is the program that we all worked on just for beautiful from itself. Okay. So I'll just be opening up the project for shot 6 in After Effects. I think this would be the great start to share the work that I've done. The nice thing about shot list, this has all been edited, like keeping track in Microsoft Excel. Yeah, Microsoft Excel sheet. Yeah. This is online, so then each and every one of us would have access to the shot list. It's just mainly just to keep a track of who has done the line, the line work, the white blocking, the color, shadows and highlights, backgrounds, the color, etc. That sort of thing. So it's always better it's always efficient, I would say. Better to keep track of the work that has been done, that's in progress, and what hasn't been completed yet. So it would just be a lot better just keeping track of each one of the shots on each scene for SE, for beautiful basically. But yeah. Alright, so let's jump right in for shot 6. So in shot 6, so if we were to this one, okay, so I actually remember now. So this shot for shot 6 it was very heavy in artifacts. So basically the intern would probably just has to send these files onto the drive, so then we as compositors would just have to make sure we have downloaded the correct assets for this particular shot. So all these shots have been worked on from the other intern, and this is given to us so then we can bring all the assets, all the elements inside After Effects. Okay, now if I were to open up the comp file for this. So yeah, there is a lot of layers that I've added in After Effects for shot 6. I just had to make sure I gave them a proper name just to make sure they are more organized. And I also gave them different colors as well, just to distinguish between which color, not sorry, which cloud is in the foreground, midground, and background. I think green is, I'm not 100% sure, there's too many of them. But what I did is I actually placed them, each of them. Let me just actually make sure I zoom in closely. So I just basically placed them around the shot. Mainly the direction of each of the clouds just had to be diagonal because this was given to me, and I just had to make sure that each of these clouds are following the same direction diagonally. Some of them I have to duplicate, some of them I have to uh, replace, change, that sort of thing in artifacts. And it does become quite heavy, honestly. So I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a green bar that only shows you that this is the duration it can actually be played. And when it's reached up to the point of there, it actually takes quite a while to actually play further on in artifacts. Yeah. So I don't know if you notice it, but you can see how this is loading the video preview because there is a animation added and also effects. So that it does take quite a lot on the program, which builds up a lot of memory. So yeah, this was a very extremely heavy shot. I mean, I wouldn't say extremely, but it is a quite a heavy shot I've worked on. What I did was I actually just add all these clouds, each of these elements clouds. If I were to double click and open up, we will see this cloud is over here for cloud 1. I just named them cloud 1, cloud 2, cloud 3, etc. Yeah. So basically, each of them are properly named and placed. Now that I think about it, it's kind of confusing which cloud is which though, because they all have different shapes. But finding the one cloud that doesn't look great, I would say, I just had to make sure I just have to place them in the correct spot in the shot. But yeah, but you get the point. So yeah, these are the clouds, and each of them I have to animate them individually. So it's hard. I mean, I wouldn't say it's hard. It's quite tricky to animate each one cloud each at a time. So basically, I just have to make sure I focus on one cloud that I move on to the next. So basically, I just have one selected and I select the rest except for the first one. So I just have to hide these. So then we can actually just focus on one cloud. Okay, maybe this one cloud is probably over here. Let me just double check. Yep, this is the one. Yeah. So if I were to click P on my keyboard, so this is the keyframe that I've animated for the clouds. So it goes from left to right. I can also move them around to show you. Oh, I think I did it extremely fast, but yeah. Yeah, so I can move the cloud left to right. I can move it vertically as well and horizontally. So this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Yeah. I can also rotate it as well. There's also effects I added, such as the camera lens. It basically just blurs out the cloud. So if I were to unhide the others, if you notice if you notice some of the clouds are blurred, and I also have to lower the opacity as well, sh- just to give it a bit of a depth that is like further away from the camera. So if you were to look outside, if you see in the far distance, like maybe there's a tree, there's a mountain, and it becomes like less visible, I would say, because it gets a bit blurry. So you won't perfectly see it at the far distance. So that's normally Yeah, so that's normally the idea of it as well. Just give it depth because it's like we don't want to focus too much on the clouds. The main focus is just like basically the focus was just the bird, the eagle, or just basically the bird, like flying past or flying through each of the clouds because that's what we mainly just want to focus because that's a focal point. What we see first is only the bird itself, and the rest of the clouds just be moving along as well. Yeah, I also added the lens flare as well. So if you notice over here, I added the lens flare. And if you notice, there is sort of like a mask because I have to create a mask because if I were to remove the mask, you can see there's a bit of like a bright light around there. Yeah. Don't think I can solo this, otherwise everything would disappear. But if I were to move it around, okay, it's becoming a little bit heavy now. But if I were to move it around, you can actually see how the lens flare can actually be moved or manipulate the point basically. It's just basically following along the point of here, or basically the flare center. Just follow along over there. So the idea was just to remove the brightness over here and just have this flare that we see right over here. So if I were to undo this, yeah. So this was how This is how I set it up originally, and I just have to just basically just remove or mask out, I would say, the brightness of the lens flare. So if I were to add a pen tool, it's very tricky to see it because we don't know how the radius is that's spreading the light, you know. So um, so I just want to have this part of the lens flare just to be shown. What I have to do, I just have to mask around over here just by using the pen tool by selecting the layer. Once I've done that, so it will, so what you see over here, it actually just masks out the rest of the lens flare, and we have this ball of light basically that's been shown. So what I want to do is just I wanted to switch, I want to invert it basically. So if I click invert, then it actually shows the rest of it over here. But the problem is we can see the sharpness, or not the sharpness, the edges, I would say, of the lens flare. So what I have to do, I just have to soften, I have to soften the edges. So by doing that, I just have to make sure I have the mask selected. And I just have to increase the value of the feather. And then it becomes smooth and the edges becomes very soft, I would say. Not smooth, but yeah, it just becomes soft. So it's easier that ways so that you don't see any sharp edges that I mask out. But yeah. The bird, however, this has all been hand drawn from the other intern. So this is basically the PSD file that has given to me, that's been given to me. And I just had to make sure that the bird, the animation sequence, it matches the duration from the shot list. Because if I were to open up the shot list, at shot 6, if we look at the number of frames of the animation sequence, it will be 110 frames. So I just have to calculate what is the duration of the number of frames. So if this is the specific number of frames that the intern have worked on, I just basically just have to type in the value just to find out what is the total duration of this shot. So if I say 110 frames and dividing by 24, which is 24 FPS, because this is because mainly each of the shots has to be work on 24 FPS, and the resolution would be 1920 by 1080. So if I do the calculations, it would be roughly around 4.5 seconds or 4.6. So that's just roughly around the duration. But apparently, it's actually just 11. Now that I just think about, now that I just noticed right away, it's actually 11 to 10 seconds. Or maybe I might be wrong. Maybe it is 4 seconds, but I'm not 100% sure. We just have to wait till it shows the result or shows the how far it is. So basically, it's more than 4 seconds. Yeah. So there was a bit of an issue in the animatic because it's all got to do with the timing on each scene or each shot for beautiful. So it was it wasn't perfectly timed, and this has to be the time has to be fixed, and we can't redo everything. We can't redo all the animation all over again. So we just have to work on what we have so far. Because some of the shots are longer, some of the shots are shorter, but this is just some of the durations on each shot that we just have to work on or work with basically. So yeah, and some of them are blurred out as well. I added effects such as the blur, because I have to blur the entire background, including the clouds, and just have the bird in focus. They have the camera only focus on the bird when when the camera is getting closer towards the camera. The rest of the background is blurred out instead of the foreground. But once the bird comes a bit closer to the camera, then the foreground has to be blurred as well, the clouds. Yeah. So you won't see it smoothly out is over here, but good thing I've done a render over here. Uh, it is shot 6 render, and there was a multiple render tests I have to do, and each of these renders I've done, I just have to send it to the director, or yeah, just to send it to the director, just to check, review if I implement the notes correctly. So there are a lot of reviews and critiques on this. I was thinking probably I could share what I've done in the other shots for beautiful because there is quite a few effects I've added on each layer. So that would be another reason why the shot might be a bit heavy. But if I were to play the render, yeah, so this is the result. So basically, I also added the fog. So I added the fog as well. That's would also be another effect I've added. So if you notice the video when when the bird gets close to the camera, the background gets blurred, and then the next would be the foreground, and then once the bird flew past or fly past the camera, then they would be in focus. But yeah, so this would be in shot 6. Yes. Right. So let's move on to the much more lighter project. So it wouldn't be this heavy for shot 6. I don't think I need to save it because there's not of any change I've did and it's already been approved from the director. So let's just check at the shot list. Which one would be the simplest shot? Also depends on the effects. So in this column, this would be the effects that needs to be added in the shot. Maybe I could check in on shot 7 or actually let's go to shot 11 I mean. Let's go to shot 11. Let's open up the project file. It's always safe that I duplicate or copy After Effects project. Because we wouldn't exactly know for sure if the project would be crashing or it will lead to an error. So we just have to make sure that we keep the same project, but just by duplicating the project file, just to make it a lot more easier. If something were to happen, this project file, we can go back to the previous project file and just make an update on that of what we have done. Then we just create a copy of that project file. Then we continue from there. Yeah. All right. So this would be shot 11. So shot 11, another thing for this one. So 20 would be so there was an issue that the background and SC are merged together. And yeah, it became a little bit of a problem because if we need to have separate layers for the background, SC and the leaves, but unfortunately the intern just forgot to separate the background and the SC. So yeah, so the alternative is instead of having the intern just to separate the SC and the background, the alternative is I just have to use the tool called rotoscoping. So what does rotoscoping do is basically if you were to click on this, right, and select the layer, which I don't think I need to right now, otherwise it might mess up the shot in the project file that I've done it already, but this would be the one exactly, yeah. So if I were to hide this, and if I were to unhide, wait, let me just hide the background. If I were to, yeah. So this was the initial layer that I've worked on, and then I noticed that in order for me to blur out the texture background, AC needs to be separated from the background. So if you notice over here, yeah, they both merge. So the alternative was to either ask the intern just to render it out again without the background and just have AC, or the second option would be for me is just to mask it out. So think of rotoscoping as masking as well when you separate certain elements out. I could use a pen to just mask each part outside around EC, but that's gonna take too much time because I have to do this each of them individually, like frame by frame. If I were to zoom in closely, I have to animate, or I have to animate the mask each frame by frame till it follows along the animation, so it becomes too much. So the best tool for this would be rotoscoping. So what I have to do is I have to double click it on it, and then we have this brush tool over here. So I just have to just color, just basically draw it over. So then this, uh, okay, this one's complaining that it needs to be 30 FPS to match the layer source. What I need to do, I need to change the FPS. I can always change it back to 24. This is just temporarily, so it doesn't complain this issue. Once I've done that, it should. Oh, it's already everything's already been selected. Like if you notice, there was like a pink highlight around the preview video. So I think I just have to invert it. Yeah. So if you notice, if I were to drag this over here, you can see some of the areas are masked out, right? I only want the background to be masked out. So if I were to draw it over here, it will fill in the areas over here. So I just have to do this multiple times till I have it. And I also need to deselect the areas over here. Some of them you can see the hair strand. Oh, wait, I might make a mistake over here. Uh, which control? There we go. Just want to decrease the size of the brush, and I just have to so brush strokes cannot be added until the kind of frame finish. Ah, it's loading up each of the frame, but you get the idea. You get the idea. So this automatically masks out SC from the background throughout the entire frame. That's what it's doing right now because it's following along the animation sequence of SC and it masks out each frame by frame without me manually doing it because it takes a lot of time and actually basically it's time consuming. Yeah, at least we all get the idea of how rotoscoping works. It's very useful. Just have to close that window that I've closed it down and put an After Effects. Yeah. Right, so the next thing I've added is also the wind effect. So if you can notice how the let's go brush size must match. Yeah, it's giving me errors now because I did change it on the shot in the layer basically. But it's already been improved, so then I don't need to wait too much. And also I have a backup for project and artifacts like duplicated, so it makes it a lot easier for me to go back previously what I've done. And I just had to continue working from there. Yeah, it's always good to have backups. Yeah. So you don't have any errors. So this is the wind effect that I've added over here. So I actually did quite a lot on this one, but I can show you how I've done it. So what I did was, if I would hide this, now, okay, now it's gonna take quite a while. Did I change the FPS on this one? No, I did not. Cool. Yeah, it does take quite a while. But what I did was, is I just selected pen tool. Actually, I need to make sure none of the layers are selected. Select the pen tool. I click the full color. Just make it white. And then I just have to create a shape. So what I have to do is just have to click one point over here and just have to give a curve. Let me just actually set the fold to none so then we can see the curve itself. And over here should be good. Yeah. So at least we got a nice curve here. It's not 100% perfect, but at least it's good just to see how I've done it like that. Then the stroke color would be white because this is what I actually need to use, not the fold, only the stroke. Yeah. And then what I can do is I can increase the size of the stroke so you can see there's like a white of the line. For the decelerator, we can see that. Yeah. Now another important note is if I were to animate this, I need to make sure that the end of the line doesn't have this straight edge. What I have to do, I just have to round it out. Or I can make it sharper either way. So what I can do is just have the selected shape 1. I think it's under stroke. Yep. And I can make this round. And so I can both ends from the foot from the beginning until the end I can make them both rounded. So select this as a round cap. You can notice it's now it's more round instead of like a straight edge, more curve. Once I've done that, I can also make it pointy at the end as well, just by using the taper. So it's sort of like this. So you can notice it's sort of like that. And if I were to drag it on the other end, and I can also increase the value of the end length as well. Yeah, there we go. So we got something like this. Yeah. So what you can do for this one is I can probably increase the sizes a little bit more. Maybe it's like roughly around 21, the size of the stroke. What I can do, I can actually just mainly just do animate it from having the flow fly past s- from each side. I think is it dashes or is it taper? Oh, I think it's probably add. I'm not 100% sure. Can't remember how I did it, but if I were to open up the other one, if I were to check it, what I've added, it was no, it wasn't effects. This is a blur. Trim paths. Is this what it's called? Trim path. Yeah. So let me just close this comp layer. If I were to click the play button, because I want to add the animation. This one will be the trim path because it will animate the path that's already been done over here. So if I drag over here and it added over here, and then what I can do is I can just play around with the value. So if you notice, it starts to flow around the curve of the shape. And what I did over here is just I can. So we're gonna do timing as well. Put the set this to 0. I keyframe it, drag it to 2 seconds. Change it to 30, I guess. For some reason, it's not. Wait, can't even see it. Okay, it starts to disappear for some reason. Not sure why. Oh, because it's at the end of the frame. That's why. The layer length, I can just I can increase the by dragging the length of the layer. Yeah. So you start to see this animation happen over here. Yeah. Does take quite a while because I did add the other fix, so that's why it's also taking a bit slow. But yeah, if I were to play it again, yeah. So once I've done that, then I can actually make this set to 0 from this point over here. Or to 0. Not 100% sure how I did it, but it's something like this. Oh, it actually maybe supposed to be over here. So I want to drag it on the time ruler. Maybe a little bit further. Over here. See how this looks. It's a lot of trial and error, so you get the result what you need. Think let me just double check. So it's somewhere over here it starts. And if I would increase the value, let's make it 100%. I think maybe it's all over here. Make this to 0. See. Go to play it and just drag the work area so it only focus on this duration. Put play it. It's something like this, but I just have to play around with the keyframes so it smoothly goes something like this. Yeah, it needs to continue on flowing flying pause. Maybe I should swap the keyframes. Put play it again. Something like this. This need to be set by 0, I think. Maybe I should delete this keyframe. Then, no, actually, okay, let's see how this looks. It's something like this. It's not 100% perfect, But at least you get the idea how it actually looks. Yeah, so once we have done that, yeah, once we have done that, and I can just actually basically can just duplicate it. And duplicate the layer, just drag it maybe above it over here, maybe more, just a little bit. You can also play around with the shape as well, so it doesn't have to follow along the same flow or path, I would say. It all depends up to you. So, and maybe duplicate another one as well. Oops, didn't mean to on that. Yeah, just rotate it maybe a little bit like this. Yeah. Now if I were to drag around, something like this. Yeah. If you note, so if you notice something like this, what I do is I just have this line selected. I think it's one, and I just click the pin tool so that I can adjust the so it doesn't cross each other. But it's not 100% perfect, but something like that. Once we have that, actually what I can do is maybe I can just have all these selected, right? Ah, that wouldn't work. Wait, maybe if I would do like this. See it now? Yeah, something like that. Then I can just pre-compose it. Then I'll add the fix for blur because we want to soften. We want to make it soft, so it's like solid. So I just increase the value, something like this. So you can see it start to does become solid, becomes soft. Yeah. So I can increase maybe a little bit more, something like this. So if I would drag the time ruler, something like this. If I increase a little bit more, maybe I don't know, 75, I guess. Then once I've done that, I can also set this to overlays for a while. Have a nice look. And if I click T for the opacity, I just increase the value just a little bit. So it's much more subtle. If I were to play it, something like that. Yeah. So that was the idea how I've done it in After Effects. Yeah. So I'll just delete that. I'll just bring up the wind. And this is what I did on each layer. So each line has its own shape layers and each individual. If you notice over here, this is how I've done it. Yeah. So I did this for the rest of them. Each of them is not for going the same flow. They all go differently. Yeah. So that's how I done it. So yeah. And this is how it actually looks. Oh yeah. And also I also added a motion blur. Like if you notice the leaf, there's a bit of a motion blur over here. Yeah, that's also another fix I've added when I type in motion blur in Artifix. So if I say motion blur, I think it was pixel motion blur. Yeah. So this is the fix I've used. I've dragged it over here in the leaves layer. Pixel motion blur. Yeah. And I just increase the value, just playing around with the values until I get the result that I need. Yeah. Yeah. And this is basically it for shot 11. Yeah. If I were to open up the render for shot 11, will look something like this as the final. I think this is the final. Yeah. So this is how it looks. Yep. Yeah. There's also another fix I added, such as a light ray. I'll open up in shot 10. Just open up the project, don't save. Always make sure you save your project when you're doing any changes. That's the shot 9. Where is shot 10? Or shot 2 and 10. The one. Open up the project. This one. Okay, and here we are for shot 2 and 10. Shot 2 and 10 are basically the same shot. It's just the only difference is the blinking. So what I have to do, I just have to animate the blinking just by adding the solid layer. I have to mask out the solid layer just to create the eye, or basically oval eye shape. And I also soften the edges as well because the edge of the mask was solid, and I just have to soften them. So it becomes sort of like this, if you can notice it. Yeah. So I have to manually, if you notice, this is how it actually looks, the mask. Yeah, it looks very, I don't know how I would explain this. Doesn't look good in the Artifacts project, but it looks good in video, right? So if I were to drag the time ruler, there's a bit of an animation where Essie blinks, when she's on the beach. Yeah, yeah, and each time she blinks, each time she blinks, it becomes less blurry in the video. Yeah, because if I were to drag the ruler somewhere over here, I'm not sure where exactly which opens. Yeah, so you can notice everything's blurred. Everything is blurred out. So after a few couple of blinks, and then when she finally fully open her eye, then all the video becomes less blurred, basically in focus. Yeah. So there's also a mirage effect I've added. I'm not sure how I've done it. I can't even remember. So there was a video tutorial I have to look up online because there's so much you can do in After Effects, and I can't recall each effect how I've done it, or the workflow I've done it before. But I get the understanding afterwards as soon as I watched the video and I understood the process. Yeah, but you can notice over here there's a bit of like a boiling effect. It's basically a mirage boiling effect. Yeah, when you're in the desert, it's far distance. If you look in the distance, you can see like the air is so like, let's say on the road, when you drive on the road, it's extremely hot, and then you see the road is look like it's in heat, like it's wobbling, like it's shaking, it's boiling. So was the idea of it, adding that effect over here. Yeah. There's also a lens flare also I've added as well. Same thing, I've done the same process. Adding the lens flare and just masking out the brightness and feather, making the edges soft. So only have this in the video. And also when the water comes in, then I added the lens of the light ray. As you can notice up here. If I were to solo, this is how it looks, yeah. So I add a bit of a wave in the lens flare because it's a boiling effect. So I just thought I added that as well, which it looks, yeah. So this is what I've done. Once I've done that, yeah, and that's how it actually looks. Yeah. So if I were to show you the video for shot 2 and 10, nope, the wrong one, sorry. Shot 2 and 10, update the renders, and this will be the final. So this is shot 2, which I have to animate the blinking. Each blink becomes less blurred, it's blurry, yeah. And now it's fully in in focus. Yeah. Oh, there's also water spray particle I've added as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah. So each principle, each effects I've used on each shot, they're all different. Some of them are the same, some of them has a different effects. So it all depends on what you need, what effects or what shot needs to have this particular composite in the artifacts for each shot, like motion blur, wind effect, dust particles. So it's always important to keep in mind what are the shots I'm trying to work on and what effects I need to add that needs to be added in each shot in beautiful. But yeah, yeah. So I hope that I hope this was an interesting part of making of for beautiful in compositing. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, I would love to show you each shot that I've worked on, but as I said, it's just yeah, it's just it probably there's so much you can do in Artifix, but yeah, so long as you can understand in like experimenting, trial and error, then at least you get an hang of how fix work in Artifix, when you're compositing. But yeah, I hope it helps on getting understanding in compositing for making of beautiful. Okay, so yeah, thank you for checking out. Peace.